Prepper. I'm Steve. How you guys doing today? Hope you're having a good day. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on in the news. F-35. Is it Russia, China? Trump, he's going against abortion. I don't think he's going completely against abortion. He's just kind of separating from the GOP, saying, you know, he thinks the ban at 6 weeks is just ill thought out, it's a mistake, blah, blah, blah. But I've told you my impressions of Trump anyhow, and growing up in New York and hearing his name almost on a daily basis, I know that he's full of hot air, so I can't really get behind him. You know, but I don't care about any of that stuff. I just don't. I don't care about it. See, so many people nowadays are closing ranks, circling the wagons, saying, you know, we've talked and we've talked and we've talked from year after year. Get ready, get prepared, take care of yourself, take care of your loved ones, take care of your friends and family, have a plan, you know, do all of that stuff. And we just keep getting pshawed and ignored and treated like we're idiots and treated like we're fools. So that's it, we're done. And you know, I'm with you. I'm right with you 100%. But we can't do that. I'm not going to get into the biblical or the spiritual saying we need to be neighbors and we need to help and love and peace and kumbaya and blah, blah, blah. I'm not getting into that. It is basically, it comes down to survival. It comes down to self-preservation. The more of you that prepare and don't run around causing scenes and being riotous mobs and break in and commit crimes and steal and empty store shelves, the more of you that aren't doing that because they're prepared, the less of you that I have to worry about. I don't need to feed you, I don't need to clothe you, I don't need to take care of your children, and I don't need to see you as a threat coming to my door. So it's purely self-preservation, 100%. And I really wish that preppers could get on the same page and say, okay, we're going to make a stand and we are going to go out and we're going to make everybody aware of this. Send out one unified message, not just you need to prepare, but give good reasons why you need to prepare. Give basic preparation beginnings. Have a plan. Start a list. Have a set goal and guidelines to go by. Don't bite off more than you can chew, and don't try and take on the entire world and save yourself from the monster apocalypse all at once. Work on this, then this, then this, then this. You know, all of this comes because I found out that I shouldn't start at the end and then work my way to the beginning, because I put a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of research into this little tiny project that I was going to do, just similarities between now and the Great Depression. Things that we saw back then that we know caused it, started it, and contributed to the rough times, and the things that we see now, especially with banks freezing accounts, and back then they froze them for 5 years. The post office starting a banking system again, since I think in '67 they stopped being a bank and now they're starting to be a bank again. Back then people were pulling their money out of banks if they could get their money and putting it in the post office. So I guess they're hoping again. I don't trust the post office because, like I said, they were issued with the task of being the peeping toms and the big brothers and keeping an eye on what we were doing. So I don't really trust the post office anymore. You know, but bank holidays and glitches. Prices going very, very high on assets and food and all of that. Everything, you know, jobs going down, and I don't care what the government says. That does not matter to me. All of their numbers are fairy dust. It's a dream. It doesn't matter. It's made up BS. All of their numbers. If you're looking at statistics right now, you're more or less wasting your time, because all they do is pick a number that sounds good to them. They don't tell the truth. They haven't told the truth in a while. So stop going by what they say. Start going by what your eyes are seeing around you. Unemployment is high. People that do have jobs have 3 and 4 and 5 and 15 jobs because stuff is so high and inflation is so up and interest rates are so out of control that they can't afford to live on a 3-person income anymore. Back then, during the Great Depression, it was 1 income. So they had things that they could do. They could rely on wives. They could rely on some children to do stuff, to try and earn money, sell papers, do whatever. You know, a lot of people didn't have it as bad as others because they had things that they could rely on. They could have side gigs. We're not going to see this time be like last time. It's not going to be the same. Back then, they had some liberties and they had some choices, and they also had the knowledge and the skill and the know-how to go out and do side gigs. Now we have the powers that be, the people that hire the politicians, the people that pay the politicians, and the people that makes a phone call and starts wars, or they make a phone call and an earthquake or wildfire goes off, or they make a phone call and banks crash. Those people, they have more now. They have more in control than they had back then. They didn't have a Federal Reserve back then. Individual banks owned just about everything, and they were trying to repo and all of that stuff. We have the Federal Reserve that owns everything. Back then, even though they took away gold and they took away silver and blah, 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 our currency was still gold and silver based. Back then, they created a new form of currency because there was no money, called scrip. Now our currency is scrip. Our currency now is a promissory note. The scrip back then was a promissory note. We have nowhere to go. Back then, food was plentiful everywhere. You could get food if you had the money, but nobody had the money. There was no money anywhere. Now, everything is drying up and there's shortages everywhere. Pardon me, this weather is messing with me. I just made a list to go grocery shopping. Just made a list. Out of my list, I had 72 items in my list. 25 of the items were in stock. 47 of the items were out of stock. That's tortilla shells, flour, cornmeal, bacon, just all of the fruit that I ordered was out of stock, you know, including like lemon juice and lime juice and stuff like that. The bread was out of stock, but then it came back into stock. You know, all of the basics and all of the staples to be able to make stuff out of stock. 47 items, almost 2/3 of what I had in my list was out of stock. And that's in a decent sized city that we haven't seen very much shortages. No ramen noodles at all. You know, nothing like that. That's today. Now maybe later in the afternoon it will get stocked again, and it's just things are getting low and they were waiting for them to get off the truck. But still, that's a huge indicator. That is very big. That first thing in the morning, when they should be stocked up, they don't have 2/3 of what I needed. Food is drying up. Back then, food was plentiful. There's stories all over about trees having fruit all over them. It's just nobody could buy it. The farmers couldn't sell it because there was no money for it. Nowadays, we have to worry about an influx of money causing the inflation to go up, causing the interest rates to go up, causing nobody to be able to afford their taxes or their mortgages or their car payments. There's plenty of money, it's just not ours. Back then, you saw even wealthy people become bankrupt. And the only ones that weren't really hit too much were the extremely wealthy. Nowadays, the wealthy and the extremely wealthy are the ones with all of the money, and it's the poor class that are suffering. And that's the way they want it. They want to have a CBDC because they can control inflation, they can control interest, they can control what sectors, what areas, what locations of the country are affected by this and affected by that. If you have one certain skin color, you get cheaper mortgages, you get cheaper this, that, and the other thing. And if you have another skin color, you pay more. So you can cover these people who you shouldn't have to worry about. It's getting moved into socialism and communism and feudalism. They didn't have that back then. Back then, they didn't have the governments closing every loophole. If you try to do a side gig now, you can't do it because gas is too expensive. And for just about any side gig, you need your vehicle. So your way of making extra income is gone. If you still have that way to make extra income, any institution, any financial institution that deals in money whatsoever, whether it's peer-to-peer, whether it's a banking institution or anything, if you make an extra $50 a month, 50, ladies and gentlemen, because of the Inflation Reduction Act that's supposed to target only the wealthy, people over $400,000 a year, if you make $50 a month extra on your side gig, which isn't even enough to buy toilet paper, they report it and you have to pay taxes on that $50 a month. They have you locked right in. Sooner or later, bartering's going to be gone because nobody's going to have anything. You know, back then you could have some nice people that if they had a store full of food and they saw starving people, they had morals and values and they would give some food to people. Restaurants couldn't sell what they had, so instead of it going bad, they would give it to people. Now you have schools that are ripping food trays away from kids and saying, you don't have enough money to pay for this. If you don't come back with how much money you owe, I'm throwing it in the garbage. So a government-run institution would rather throw away perfectly good food than give it to an innocent child who doesn't have a job, who depends on their parents to feed them. It's the parents' fault. The parents should go hungry, not the child. But that child can just go hungry and they're going to throw away perfectly good food. That's the selfishness of this society that we're in. They didn't have that back then. Back then there was still some trust in the government, which there's none now. Back then there was some respect for the law, which there is none now. The law would be extremely heavy-handed back then. Now, if you're darker than their badge, they can't even put cuffs on you because it's a civil rights violation. Now you have people spitting and throwing water and treating police terribly, terribly. Now you have an entire generation of worthless, soulless, godless, immoral, corrupted wastes of life gathering by the thousands and destroying everything in their path just because they can. You didn't have that back then. You have people with no care or concern for personal property going into stores and robbing them blind. When the stores close because big business doesn't want brick and mortar stores, it costs them too much money. It's too much overhead, too much upkeep. They want to move everything to a digital platform, all online. They want to, and they're moving it there. That's why laws were passed to allow thugs and worthless pieces of trash to go in and steal what they want with no repercussion. So the stores close and they move to an online presence. Because of those wastes of life, all brick and mortar is going to close down. So there's not going to be anywhere to get a handout from nice people. Bartering will be closed because of rationing and stuff like that. Because we see food drying up. Back then it was in abundance. Now there's going to be an extreme shortage, which is also why we're moving to synthetic everything. It's a completely different world that we're living in. We're living under a completely different set of rules. And there's a completely different reason why this depression is going to happen and why these events are happening the way that it is. You know, it really is a funny thing. I talked myself out of the similarities and put so much work into it, and when I actually did the work and looked into it, I realized there's more differences now than there are similarities. You know, the only thing similar is the poor people are expendable. That's it. But in order for us to survive, we have to come together. And in order for us to come together, we need to continue to get the message out there. So I'm really asking all of you, you know, if you want me to do the talking for you and you think I have a message to come across, just share me. That's it. You know, it's tell a person to watch. That's all. If you don't want to benefit me in any way, or you don't like me, or you think I'm just rambling or something like that, fine, your opinion. Does not concern me, does not matter to me in the slightest. But please take this message out with you. Like I said, the more people that are prepared and can take care of themselves, the less people we have to worry about. We don't have to be responsible for them. We don't have to feel bad if we turn them away hungry. We don't have to feel bad if we take away their most precious gift because they were trying to act a fool and come into our house and take what's ours. We won't be put in a position where it will affect us if people are prepared. That's all I ask, and God willing, we'll see you tomorrow.